Are you lost in a sea of cybersecurity acronyms? Are you asking your team the difference between a CISO, SOC, or SIEM? My name is Mallory Randall, and I'm the Director of Marketing here at Interlace.io. Joining me today is Zachary Scherf, our Director of Cybersecurity. Navigating the IT landscape is difficult, especially if you don't know the language. Today, Zach and I would like to cover some of the most commonly used and often misunderstood acronyms in the IT security space.
Thanks, Mallory. Our intention today is to help you understand not only the meaning of these acronyms, but their practical application as well. Starting off today's session, I'd love to discuss some of the tools in this space. Our first tool is going to be a SOC. Starting off with the confusing topic, a SOC or SOC. I only say this is confusing because it's used multiple times, never interchangeably, in the InfoSec world. An SOC or SOC as a service is short for a Security Operations Center. A good SOC will utilize tools like a SIEM, which we will discuss next, plus train cybersecurity professionals who analyze the data to identify potential threats and isolate or protect information systems against their impact. This differs from the AICPA SOC, which is a compliance attestation standard of multiple levels. You may have heard things like SOC 2 or SOC 3 reports and attestation, while a SOC SOC can help you in your pursuit of a SOC 2 certification. They are completely different.
So why would a business need to know about SOC, Zach?
You may need a SOC if you are concerned about who is watching your security software, watching your infrastructure, and then responding to threats or incidents that are facing it. An important distinction is that an IT help desk is not, in most cases, an SOC. So if the automated tools don't catch something, you may leave your business and your employees vulnerable. The next thing I'd like to discuss is a SIEM, SIEM. It's pronounced SIM, and it's short for Security Information and Events Management. A SIEM tool at its core aggregates logs and to varying degrees processes event information from your information and IT systems. A SIEM can be especially useful in situations where you have an environment, cloud production environment or a hosted environment, as these are incredibly complex and often require an aggregator such as the SIEM to get useful information. The ultimate goal of a SIEM is to provide an information source for cybersecurity analysts, AI-powered tools, or other analyzing utilities to identify security threats so that action can be taken. It is especially useful in cases where cyber forensics and threat hunting are required. A good SIEM collects all of this information and then uses algorithms to drown out the noise to make the job of your cybersecurity analyst much easier. However, you can still use a SIEM to retain information out after analysis, where something like compliance is going to require that you hold that information for further processing. You might need a SIEM in a situation where you're providing a platform as a service or a SaaS product if you're in that line of business, or if you're ever housing customer information, as that could introduce additional compliance requirements that a SIEM would make significantly easier to satisfy, right? It's especially important if, when going through something like a SOC 2, you need to prove the ability to recall logs, or in the case where you've determined that you need a SOC, a Security Operations Center, it gives them a platform to work in and review.
Okay, Zach, let's talk about some of the terms that I've heard pretty frequently. EDR, XDR, and NGAV.
Yeah. EDR, XDR, and NGAV are typically terms used or related to endpoint tools that use behavioral analysis to identify malware and other threats. They identify these threats and then they prevent them from executing and wreaking havoc on infrastructure within a business, right? So EDR would stand for Endpoint Detection and Response, XDR stands for Extended Detection and Response, and NGAV is short for Next Generation Antivirus. It's important to note that these are not individual products or mutually exclusive. XDRs, EDRs, and NGAVs have significant overlap, similar to a square rectangle relationship.
Man, say that 3 times fast.
EDR, or Endpoint Detection and Response, expands on the functionality of NGAV by increasing the scope, instead of identifying the behavior of one endpoint, it will, among other things, expand on the available data points for behavioral analysis and its overall effectiveness by looking at the whole network as opposed to an individual machine, right? It's also going to look at how individual machines interact with each other holistically and some of the behaviors there to help identify threats and stop them before they have an impact on the business, right? This is actually really well paired with something that we previously discussed, the SIEM, where since you're collecting all of this information, an EDR paired with the SIEM can be a really good tool in helping to identify and stop and also investigate threats as they're affecting the business and hopefully before they affect the business, right? Now, XDR takes EDR a step further, right? XDR, or Extended Detection and Response, combines endpoint controls, which would be a next generation antivirus or an EDR, and it combines them with a cloud system. So whereas a next generation antivirus would look at an individual machine, a EDR would look at how all of the machines but individual computers are interacting with each other. And XDR takes this a step further by tying in cloud systems, email systems, etc., to give you an even more holistic and a higher view, and just overall more data points that you can collect and use to identify the visibility of threats.
Got it. So do businesses need all three of these solutions, or can they get by with just one or two?
It's safe to say that if you're running a legacy antivirus solution, you need to upgrade to a next generation antivirus, right? However you want to do that, whether you go for an XDR solution that takes the entire environment, an EDR that would take all of the machines, or a next generation antivirus, however you want to do that is totally dependent on the needs of your business. Simply put, legacy antivirus systems do not protect against modern threats, so you need to upgrade to one of these. It's best to talk to somebody who's an expert, understands your business, and understands your own information security process and procedure to make a recommendation on what path to go down. One.
Our final security acronym of the day is DLP.
DLP. DLP is short for data loss prevention. So DLP isn't a tool as much as it is an approach to preventing data breaches or compliance failures. So DLP is comprised of policy, training, and technology. But for this conversation, I want to touch on what a DLP tool may do. So a DLP tool uses rules and other types of intelligence to identify sensitive information in categories and then restrict the sharing of that information. It can be as broad or as narrow as you'd like as far as scope goes. For example, you could use a DLP tool to identify something complex such as a patient's name, a social security number, or a home address in a Word document that you shared, and then prevent that sharing from happening because it might go against your compliance procedures, right? DLP tools can also be used to segregate data within information systems and help enforce which employees have access to certain pieces of info. So for example, you would have somebody who may not be able to access PHI, and then as soon as PHI is entered into a document, it may be moved into a different part of the system that would prevent people who are not authorized from accessing it. When you hear DLP tool, think of it like categories, and having an assistant that watches your teams on the back end to make sure that simple mistakes or oversights don't result in liability nightmares. You may need a DLP tool if you're subject to a security framework like HIPAA for healthcare, SOX for the financial world, or CMMC for the government contractors. And these tools are really good to augment your existing policies and procedures. The important thing that you need to note is just having a DLP tool alone is not going to be very effective. Educating your employees about and on what and how to prevent data loss protection, in addition to a tool to help them out, is a really good holistic approach that's going to result in a much higher level of effectiveness.
Got it. Well, thanks for the great information today, Zach. We hope this content helped to give you a little more insight into the world of cybersecurity, especially since October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. This video is part one of a 4-part series that we'll be rolling out each week in October, so make sure to subscribe to our channel below so you can see more videos like these. Interlace doesn't just break down complex jargon as much as we enjoy doing that. So to learn more about how Interlace can help your business with IT support, visit interlace.io/contact. See you soon.